Welcome into Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Meghan Payton. I'm sure you guys can guess what the topic of this show is going to be. But before we talk about the Seahawks versus the refs, I'm going to ask you guys, is there any questions you want answered on a future Seahawks Today show? This is our mailbag call. You guys know what to do. Use hashtag Seahawks. Get your questions in. Make sure you are subscribed, though, because if you are not, you cannot be featured on our show. Okay, guys, we are talking Seahawks versus the Rams. And as I'm sure you guys watched the game, saw what happened, and Seahawks end up losing this game 10-20. Unfortunate ending to not only this game, but this season. We're going to break down a lot more of these stats and players, but the obvious is the obvious, and that was the refs' no PI call. Dee Jay Dallas getting absolutely screwed over. And to me, the no call is unacceptable. We talk about the NFL referees. We talk about the issues that happen during the league. This is probably the worst I've seen in 2021. I said on Twitter last night, it reminded me of something very similar, the 2018 NFC Championship no call. And to me, I mean, I understand there's going to be some iffy calls. The refs aren't going to get it perfect every time, but it's just hard for me to imagine that calls like this just go unseen. How can you miss something just so blatant, so obvious? And would the Seahawks have won that game if that call would have been called? I don't know. We'll never know. And that's the problem. I'm not saying that, the refs absolutely changed the outcome of the Seahawks season. We won't know that, but that's the problem. We don't want to live in a world where the refs are deciding the games because those have major impacts. Who knows? Maybe the Seahawks would have scored. And by the way, guys, to call unsportsmanlike conduct on Dee Jay Dallas for kicking the ball afterwards is just absolutely crazy to me. It's unfortunate watching games like this, seeing calls like this happen. It makes me angry with the league. It makes me angry with the referees. And to me, it's just absolutely unacceptable. But I will get your opinion. I'm hoping that it is the same as mine. Type refs in the comment if you blame them for the loss. I'm saying that the referees beat Seattle. And I think what really bothers me about this call in specific, or this no call in specific, is it ends the season. I mean, the Seahawks now have a 0.1 chance at making the playoffs. And I hate to see their season end this way. I hate to have the thought of, well, what would have happened if that would have been called? Again, who knows? Maybe it really wouldn't have had much of an impact, but the problem is we won't know. But like I said, Seahawks are now dropping to 0.1% chance. They are in the others category, obviously, sitting at 5-9, tied with the Carolina Panthers. It would be absolutely a miracle for them to get a wild card spot. And, I think more than just playoffs, because it's pretty clear that that is out of the picture. It's crazy to think about the Seahawks having a losing season under Russell Wilson. They are now at 5-9. This will be their first losing season since 2011. So, there's going to be years like that. And again, you're not going to blame the refs for this whole season. The Seahawks have struggled this year, and there's going to be a lot of change that happens during the offseason. But it was a Seahawks team unlike the past. You look at what they did these last 5 years, and it looks unrecognizable. 2020, they were first in the NFC West at 12-4. 2019, 11-5. You can look down this list, but the worst they had was in 2017, 9-7. These were just the last 5 years. And so Russell Wilson's going to feel this, and he is not used to losing. I think this season as a whole for Seattle just felt very different than past years. So instead of doing a one-word reaction to the game, because I'm hoping it's just the refs, I'm going to ask you guys, what is your one-word reaction to this season? Go down to the comments right now. Let me know what you guys are thinking. But we do have to shift gears and talk about the other things that did happen in this game, minus the no call from the refs. As we said, Seahawks lose this game 10-20. Russell Wilson just not looking like Russell Wilson. We are going to talk about all of that. But first, I have some positive news for you guys. There's a great deal going on over at Fanatics that I want to tell you about. This is the Seahawks vintage gear. You know how much I love throwback gear, specifically sports throwbacks. I think it's great, and they have a great sale going on. You can get stuff up to 50% off. I said this in a previous video. This is a perfect, hey, I'm sorry I forgot about Christmas. Here's a delayed gift. They've got beanies. They've got cool long sleeve shirts, a couple sweatshirts in there. Go to chatsports.com/Seahawks gear. Get some throwback gear, because right now you're hoping that the Seahawks look a little bit like what they did in the past. All right, back to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson struggled a bit in this game. That's the reality. I think he knows it. It didn't feel like Russell Wilson. And I think it was a little bit discouraging to see just after these last couple of weeks of Russell Wilson starting to click, especially against the Texans. It felt like he was, connecting at least with Tyler Lockett in previous games. Obviously, Lockett not out, after testing positive for COVID-19. He still can't get that connection with DK Metcalf. Last night, he was 17 out of 31 attempts, 156 yards, 1 interception, and a QB rating of 28.5. I don't know the stats on that, but that's got to be probably one of the lowest QB ratings that Russell Wilson has ever gotten. And during his press conference, you could tell he was feeling it. And I think he knows that this season's over. They asked him about that deep throw to DK, and he said they got off the ball pretty good there, and I tried to get it out of my hand. He was kind of doing a double move, so I tried to get it out of my hand before I got hit. Just tried to put some air under it, let him go get it. Sometimes those double moves are tricky because you never know when they're going to come out of it. I wish I could have that one back. That was one I wish we could have back. And that's one DK Metcalf wishes that Russell Wilson could have had back, because DK Metcalf is getting angry. We saw it last night. His emotions are definitely being displayed. And you know what? I'm going to stick up for DK because I do understand his frustration. He's one of the, arguably top 5 wide receivers in the league, and he's not being able to connect with Russell Wilson because he's either getting overthrown or just completely inaccurate. And DK does have some improvement to do, and I don't think it's always the best idea to showcase your emotion in front of your team to your quarterback. I don't know how much of a positive impact that has, but I do understand DK Metcalf's frustration. He was 6 receptions last night, 52 yards. Again, without Tyler Lockett out there as well, those stats really should be higher. I do think that this is much more of a Russell Wilson problem, at least last night was. So we are going to grade Russell Wilson's performance against the Rams. We're going to scale this A, B, C, D, or F. I think we know it wasn't an A. It really wasn't a B either. Go to the comments. Let me know what you are grading Russell Wilson. We do have to shout out Dee Jay Dallas, though, because even though he got absolutely screwed at the end of the game, he had 8 carries, 41 yards, and 1 touchdown and an average of 5.1. I think his flip at the end of his touchdown was maybe my favorite part of the game. And a couple other guys we are going to shout out was Gerald Everett. He was playing for the first time against his former team. He was on the COVID-19 list last time they took on the Rams. So it was a great homecoming. He came along with Shane Waldron last year, first year in Seattle. And, obviously, I'm sure he wishes he could have gotten a win against his former team, but he had a decent game. He was only targeted 4 times, so caught all 4 of them, 4 receptions, 60 yards. So again, we didn't see a ton of him, but when he was out there, he did well. I think that Gerald Everett continues to improve after having one of the worst games of his career a few weeks ago. Carlos Dunlap had to be the defensive player, I'd say, of the game, with 4 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. Very unlike Dunlap. 3 quarterback hits. I think that he stood out in this Seattle game. I'd also say that Jordan Brooks had a really good game. We've been seeing a lot from him. I'd say, we'll probably talk about him later on as the season ends. We get closer to the offseason. I think he's been one of the Seahawks' best defensive players this year. He had 11 tackles last night, 2 tackles for loss. Poona Ford, another one. Right now we are sticking positive for a sec because Poona Ford, I thought, played a great game. He had 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. These stats don't do it justice. He was playing tough. He was looking really good out there. And of course, there's a lot more Seahawks news to happen. So this is why you guys subscribe to our channel. I understand it was an unfortunate game last night. There's things that the Seahawks are going to wish they had back. The refs screwed them over, that's for sure. Russell Wilson not looking like himself. DK Metcalf not being able to get connected with Russ, and obviously COVID-19 hurting the Seahawks. But here at Seahawks Today, we are not done talking about the Seahawks. Even if their playoff chances are out of the question, we are going to keep you updated on your favorite team. So make sure you go to youtube.com/Seahawks TV or press that big red button.